Seville, December 31st, 1899. I, Isabella Candela, stood at the precipice of adulthood, a naive 19-year-old about to inherit a crumbling yet charming townhouse in the heart of the Santa Cruz neighborhood. My parents had passed away tragically a year prior, a carriage accident that left a gaping hole in my life. Now, with a heavy heart and a lighter purse, I was determined to make a fresh start, to find solace in the dusty tomes and worn furniture that whispered of generations past. The townhouse itself was a labyrinth of faded grandeur. Sunlight, filtered through layers of grime on the high windows, cast long skeletal shadows across the high-ceilinged rooms. The air itself felt stagnant, carrying a faint scent of mildew and something else, something I couldn't quite place. The first night was the worst. Every creak of the ancient floorboards, every groan from the settling house, sent shivers down my spine. I slept with a flickering oil lamp by my bedside, its meager light doing little to pierce the suffocating darkness. It started subtly, a sensation of weightlessness on my chest, like a stray cat curled upon me. I jolt awake, heart pounding, only to find myself alone. Then came the whispers, faint and chilling, like a forgotten melody played on a broken flute. They spoke of desire, of a touch that promised untold pleasure, a touch that felt impossibly cold. The whispers grew bolder with each passing night. One night I awoke to find a frigid hand tracing circles on my bare arm. Panic clawed at my throat, my scream trapped in the lump that formed there. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing the hand away, willing myself back to sleep. Morning brought a semblance of calm. The whispers, the chilling touch, all seemed like a fever dream. I busied myself with mundane tasks, dusting the antique furniture, arranging the inherited books. The air, still heavy, felt a little less oppressive in the harsh daylight. But as dust settled, the dread returned. The whispers started before I even drifted off, a malevolent lullaby promising a touch both alluring and terrifying. This time, I fought sleep. I lay rigid in bed, staring up at the cracked ceiling, a desperate prayer forming on my lips. Then I felt it. A weight on my chest, a cold, clammy hand cupping my breast. A sharp, guttural voice whispered in my ear, sending shivers down my spine. "Isabella," it breathed, "let me love you." Terror surged through me, robbing me of my breath. I flung myself out of bed, scrambling towards the flickering lamp. As the flame bathed the room in a golden glow, I whirled around, expecting to see a monstrous apparition, a demon straight from my nightmares. But there was nothing. The room was empty, the oppressive chill lingering. Tears welled in my eyes, a mixture of fear and relief. Was I going mad? Could grief be manifesting in such horrific ways? Determined to prove my sanity, I decided to delve into the history of the house. The next morning, I ventured out, the crisp winter air a welcome change from the suffocating atmosphere of my home. I sought out Doña Luisa, a wizened old woman who lived down the street, known for her vast knowledge of Sevilla's hidden lore. Doña Luisa listened intently as I recounted my harrowing experiences. When I finished, she sighed, a deep, weary sigh that spoke volumes. "The Casa de los Susurros," she whispered, "the House of Whispers." Then her face creased into a network of wrinkles as she began to weave a chilling tale. Doña Luisa's wrinkled hand gripped mine, her voice a raspy whisper. "The Casa de los Susurros," she repeated, "has a long and troubled history. It was built in the 16th century by a wealthy nobleman, Don Federico Vargas." A shiver ran down my spine. The name vaguely echoed in the dusty corners of my memory. I recalled finding a faded portrait in the attic, a handsome man with eyes that seemed to hold a hidden darkness. Doña Luisa continued, her voice filled with a morbid fascination. "Don Federico was known for his unusual tastes. He was obsessed with a young woman, Isabella, a servant in his household. He desired her with a consuming passion." My blood ran cold. The coincidence was too stark to ignore. One fateful night, Doña Luisa continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial hush, Don Federico attempted to force himself upon Isabella. In the struggle, she died. Legend says his own rage choked him to death moments later. The weight of history pressed down on me. It seemed I wasn't just living in a house. I was living in a tomb haunted by a dark, unfinished story. And the whispers? I rasped, my voice barely above a whisper. Doña Luisa's gaze met mine, filled with a strange sympathy. Don Federico's desire remained unfulfilled. He lingers, an entity bound to the house, forever seeking what he could never have. My body went numb. I wasn't just dealing with a ghost, but a malevolent one, fueled by perverse desire. Is there anything I can do? I pleaded, desperately seeking a way to break free from this nightmare. Doña Luisa's brow furrowed. There's an old tale, she said, her voice hesitant. A ritual of appeasement. It requires an offering, something precious to the spirit. Hope flickered in my chest. An offering? Maybe, just maybe, there was a way to banish the entity and find peace. My gaze drifted to the portrait in the attic, Don Federico's face staring back at me with an unsettling intensity. There might be something, I said, my voice tight with apprehension. That night, I climbed the creaking stairs to the attic, the portrait a beacon in the dim moonlight. With trembling hands, I unhooked it from the wall. As I carried it down, a cold gust of wind seemed to whistle through the empty house, the hairs on my arms standing on end. Following Doña Luisa's instructions, I built a small pyre in the center of the drawing room, the portrait laid upon it. As I stared at Don Federico's face, I felt a strange sense of pity. A man consumed by desire, forever trapped in a cycle of unfulfilled longing. Taking a deep breath, I lit the pyre. The flames danced, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. A wave of nausea washed over me as the portrait began to curl and melt, Don Federico's face contorting in a silent scream. As the last embers died down, a chilling silence descended on the house. The oppressive atmosphere seemed to lift, replaced by an unsettling emptiness. Did it work? Had I banished the entity? A sudden crash from upstairs shattered the silence. My heart lurched, a knot of fear tightening in my stomach. Tentatively, I crept towards the sound, each step echoing in the stillness. Reaching the attic, I found the source of the noise. A dusty trunk lay overturned, its contents spilled across the floor. But what truly sent a jolt of terror through me was the photo that lay half buried beneath a pile of moth-eaten clothes. It was a faded picture, a young woman with eyes that mirrored my own, a woman named Isabella Candela. My blood ran cold. Was this the Isabella from the legend? Was I related to her somehow? A horrifying realization dawned on me. Perhaps the entity wasn't Don Federico. Perhaps it was something far more sinister, something that had been waiting for the right descendant, the right Isabella, to return. The silence in the attic felt heavy, suffocating. The chill had returned, stronger this time, a malevolent presence pressing down on me. A cold whisper, barely audible, swirled around me. Isabella, it breathed, a voice filled with a chilling promise. Now let me love you. The house, it seemed, wasn't empty. The nightmare had just begun.